It's so great to be here at the roast of Carter Elliott. Last year, over drinks in Lincoln, Nebraska, I asked Carter if he had any advice for me as an expecting father. He told me, and I quote, just be there. Well, it's great to see that he can't follow his own advice as he abandoned me for this show. A lot of people ask me, how did I first meet Carter? And it's a pretty simple story. When I first met him, it was New Year's Eve, 2012. We were at a mutual friend's apartment for a New Year's Eve party, and after about an hour of drinking, Carter and his now wife disappeared to what I believe was an upstairs bedroom for about an hour and a half. For years, I just assumed that they were having a little consensual relationship fun, until years later when I found out that they were just binge watching New Girl for an hour and a half. You see, Carter may look like this big, tough, semi-athletic man, but deep down inside, I truly believe that he is a white girl at heart. I mean, this man has an entire playlist that consists of only, quote, white people music, and he unprompted plays it in the car more than anything else when we're on road trips. This is a man who would rather watch Outer Banks than college basketball. His favorite players in college basketball last season, in order, were Joey Hauser, Paul Mulcahy, Hunter Couture, Brooks Barnheiser, and Matthew Meyer. That's not a joke. That's a fact. And I get this is supposed to be a roast. That means jokes. All I'm doing is saying facts. So I need some help here. Let's get one of Carter Elliott's favorite white people, Riley Davis, to join the show. Riley, take it over.
Cart, what's up, man? Got my son here. He wanted to roast you since you try to slander him next week. Says he already has a higher vertical than you. You hear him? Says you're a waste of height and you're about, let's see, like skipping 2 or 3 of Megan's vegan meals away from being shaped like 2023 Raymond Felton. Anything else, Theo? Yep. Yeah, let your Uncle Cart know what's up. He says you put him to sleep. He's boring as hell.
Riley, thank you so much for that. I know you have a very busy schedule these days, and you certainly could have been showing Creed songs to your infant child, so I greatly appreciate you making time for the Carter Elliott roast. You know, Carter always says, we're not a math podcast, but I think the truth is he's just not a math podcaster, but I am. So since he's out today, here are some important numbers that I thought would be worth sharing. 0.21. That's Bob Huggins' blood alcohol content level when he was arrested for a DUI. Coincidentally, 0 is also how many games Carter started as a sophomore at Albion, and 21 is how many games he played that season. Another key number, 39. That's how many tweets Carter has tweeted with the words Taylor Swift in them. 39, coincidentally, is also the number of games that Michigan State basketball has lost in the last 3 seasons, which just so happens to be more than Illinois, Purdue, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Michigan in that span. Which is a great segue into our next roaster, someone who knows all about losing basketball games, the only Pitt fan brave enough to show his face on camera, Tristan Freeman.
All right, so thanks to Carter flaking out, we don't have our usual guys list. So instead, I'm going to step in and bring out a list of my own. And these are the top 5 big men that remind me most of Carter Elliott. So starting out at number 5, Glenn Davis, known as Big Baby. And quite frankly, it relates to Carter because Carter can be a big baby sometimes. Former star at LSU, won a national championship at Boston. More importantly, weighed around 290 pounds. Number 4, we'll go with Eddie Curry. Top 5 pick, former NBA draft pick, reminds us of Carter Elliott because he's a big man with a lot of wasted potential. And more importantly, he weighed around 295 pounds. Number 3, Dexter Pittman. 4-year guy at Texas, played 50 games in the NBA. Same amount of podcasts that Carter did before he decided to flake out on us. More importantly, weighed around 310 pounds. Number 2, Michael Sweetney. All-American at Georgetown, stud college player. Carter tried to be an All-American at the D3 level, so they kind of have that in common. And more importantly, he weighed around 350 pounds. And then number one, the guy who easily reminds me most of Carter Elliott is Sim Bullard, former WAC Rookie of the Year at New Mexico State, 7'5" big man, actually got some run in the NBA. More importantly, weighed around 360 pounds. And there you have it. Those are the top 5 guys that reminds me most of Carter Elliott for no particular reason. Just want to put that out there. And Carter, if you have a problem with it, go fight Coy.
Tristan, that was incredible. Thank you so much for that. I got to be honest, though, I'm baffled that we were all able to listen to that without clicking through a 24-slide slideshow so that you could afford your craft singles and Code Red Mountain Dew. But Tristan, I got to applaud you. That's growth right there. It really is. Speaking of growth, one thing I love about Carter Elliott is that he's grown so much as a person. I mean, physically, obviously, he's grown. He's shaped like high school Derek Nix, and he's married to a vegan. But think about it. For years, if I would have talked about Carter Elliott's growth, he would have swooped right in to say pause. But today, he's not even here to do it. That's growth. Or like the time in 2010, when 2 months apart from each other, Carter Elliott tweeted these 2 tweets in July 2010. Quote, "Totally got some Taylor Swift CDs and blasted them with my windows rolled down so bitches will think I'm sensitive and shit and sleep with me." It's a real tweet. 2 months later, though, look at the growth. Carter tweets this in September 2010. "I'm going to come right out and say it. Mine by Taylor Swift is my shit. Hashtag that is all. Hashtag don't judge me." I mean, you have to applaud the growth. He's always evolving. He's always getting better and better. And while we're talking about growth, I'd like to introduce a man of many words, but growth is not one of them. He checks Eli Bedecker.
If there was ever a person who could just perfectly encapsulate what it means to be all bark and no bite, it's Carter Elliott. I mean, the guy is 6'7", and he'll tell you all the time that he's 6'7", but he's 6'7". He played basketball at the college level. He is a co-host for a very successful podcast that covers arguably the most recognizable conference in the entire sport. And yet, the Carter Elliott that I know and a few other people are beginning to know is someone who is just a second away from planning out a weekend vacation at a tiny house in the woods with matching pajamas and warm beverages and cozy socks, or the type of person who will have maybe his 10 to 15 favorite Drake lyrics lined up for his next Instagram caption. He's probably got a few different Live, Laugh, Love posters saved on Amazon, just waiting to order and hanging them up in his living room. Like, that's the type of Carter Elliott that I know. Not the 6'7" podcaster, the former, college athlete. That's this Carter Elliott that a lot of other people know. So it's a shame that it has to be discovered this way, but let's call a spade a spade. The real Carter Elliott is finally coming to light. I'm sorry it had to happen this way, and I feel bad for Greg, but that's the real Carter Elliott.
Eli, that was great. Thank you very much for that. The Big Ten's newest member, Eli, by the way. Washington fan, although sometimes a Purdue fan. I don't really get it, but who am I? I'm a mutant fan as well. True story here about Eli. We had 2 separate Zoom calls with Eli this summer where Sleepers was potentially going to work with Heat Check. Just kind of never really got to the finish line there. Mostly Eli just sort of ghosted us. But, the interesting thing is I texted him last night saying, "Do you want to roast Carter?" And within 15 minutes, I had that video sent back to me. So priorities, Eli. I really, really respect and appreciate that. Look, I can joke all day, but the truth is that it's really, really hard to replace Carter Elliott. I mean, let's just say hypothetically, this situation was flipped. If I told him I couldn't make an episode, Carter could just go out and choose one of approximately 500 million Caucasian men who love sports and want to podcast, even though they've never played a higher level than JV basketball. But when Carter leaves, what the hell am I supposed to do? I mean, where else can I find a 6'7", 250-pound man who is the VP of sales and information at his father's company, even though he hasn't gone into the office earlier than 1 p.m. in the afternoon once in the last 3 months? Where else could I possibly find a 6'6", 260-pound man who once scored 6 points per game for his Division III basketball team, whose player bio on the Albion website still says emotional leader who likes playing video games? I mean, how could I possibly find another 6'5.5", 285-pound man who spends more time doing voiceovers on his men's league highlights than he does anything else in his day-to-day life? Look, all jokes aside, Carter Elliott is truly one of one. I've told him this for years, and I really genuinely believe this. Carter Elliott is the single thing that makes Sleepers Media special. He would even admit, he would tell you this every time we go to the Final Four, if we're on site anywhere, the night usually ends with both of us with a beer in our hands and me just emotionally spilling out to Carter about how good he is at all of this. And I really mean that. There are thousands of other college basketball podcasts, hundreds of other media members. So many of them are just so similar, and that's not a bad thing. They're all great at what they do, but none of them have what Carter Elliott has. And that's me. We love you, Cart. We hope you're having a great vacation. And without further ado, let's get to Greg Radio.